On today's show, how worried should Nets fans be about rookie struggles? Is the team going about rookie development properly? And could front office and coaching changes be on the horizon? I'll answer all those fan questions and more right now.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. This show is 100% free on all those great platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. And on today's episode, it's Fan Take Friday. I took questions and takes from Nets fans on a wide range of subjects, including the team's rookies, Jordi Fernandez and Sean Marks, potential trades, and more. So getting right into it, first question. I know it's early, but not super excited about the rookies that have played. Dioman can shoot, but is a weak ball handler and hasn't shown any ability to get downhill. Sraf has great size, but is timid attacking and can't shoot to save his life. Troy is quick, but can't shoot. And this seems to be the consensus among a lot of Nets fans. Are very worried about how these rookies have looked out of the gate, are less than enthused, and some seem to be hitting the panic button already 5 games into the season. And I'll say, is this a great start? Like, is this how the Nets front office or I think fans would have hoped or envisioned this going? No, but I don't think that it's all that surprising how it's played out. And I think the level of concern or the level of panic that I'm seeing among some Nets fans, I'm not saying none of it's warranted, but I think it's a little overblown relative to what we've seen. We've seen 3 rookies play thus far in Yegor Dioman, Ben Sraf, and Nolan Troy. And of those 3, I think there have been encouraging signs and bright spots, and I think there's been a lot of struggles. But we knew, or at least should have known, that all of these players were developmental prospects. The Nets didn't get up in the draft. They didn't get a Cooper Flagg or a Dylan Harper or a VJ Edgecombe or even a Jeremiah Fierce or Con Knipple. They weren't there. Like, these guys are developmental prospects that had some glaring weaknesses in their games. And I think they've shown some NBA skills that can translate to this level, at least in terms of Dioman and Ben Sraf. Like, you look at Dioman, and the biggest concern among a lot of people was the 3-point shooting. Some people would say the biggest concern was the ball handling. And I think I really wanted to see him be a decent shooter, or at least like a good to high level shooter at this level, in order to give him some kind of floor. And I think he has shown that. The last couple of games, his shots haven't fallen, but all of his threes look good for the most part. And he looks like a legit shooter. That's a resounding positive, because that was not a guarantee heading into the season. And it's a small sample size. We're only 5 games in. But if you give, the summer league, the preseason game, and the games that he's played in, the jump shot looks good, and it has gone in at a pretty high rate on pretty high volume. So that's a major positive, because a lot of people had concerns about that. Now, I will say that the ball handling limitations, the timidness or lack of aggressiveness has been extremely glaring. I mean, this is a player who's really attempted, I'd say, 2-point field goals. Like, on the stat sheet, he doesn't have any, but he attempted 1 in the Charlotte game that he missed so bad on that they gave him an assist for it. And then he got fouled on like a broken play during the Hawks loss on Wednesday. But in terms of drives to the basket, drives to the rim, we've really seen like 1 that was a terrible attempt through 5 games. So that's major. That's a major concern. And I'm not going to downplay that. And Yegor needs to just get more aggressive, because he does have glaring limitations as a ball handler. He doesn't look like he can get by anybody, but he does have openings to get downhill and at least try to do something. And if it looks bad and it looks ugly, that's fine, but you need to at least try. So that is something that I think he will do, but he hasn't done it up to this point. And, no 2-point field goal attempts on the stat sheet through 5 games. That obviously speaks to a mindset issue, but also the skill set. There are glaring limitations right now. And there are questions moving forward about, how are these players going to, like, how is he going to look in terms of, is he a point guard? Is he a wing? And with these ball handling limitations, this was the reason coming out of the draft that I had concerns about Yegor's ceiling. I said if he can shoot, that I'm pretty confident in the floor because he's a 6'9" guy who has some ball handling ability and is a pretty, elite court mapper when he can get to those spots. So if you give the shooting with that size, potential defensive versatility, potential playmaking that he has, I thought all that lent itself to a high floor. But the ceiling is going to depend on his development as a ball handler. And look, we knew that he had these limitations last season at BYU. It was pretty glaringly evident. Kevin Young and that coaching staff did a great job of scheming things up and getting him open going downhill. And Jordi Fernandez has done some of that, but I think that he'll need to do more, and I think that he will look to do more. And I think also Yegor needs to show some more aggressiveness. But he's 19 years old. Like, this is going to be a process. And, with Saraf, same thing. Like, I think that Saraf, he hasn't played great, but I've been encouraged. Like, I didn't expect him to come in and have an impact on winning. Saraf has shown some advantage creation. He's shown some playmaking flashes. He's shown some willingness to shoot the ball. And I think that it's not too far off from what I was expecting. And I think that, do I lean towards it being more of a positive or more of a negative? I lean towards the former because I think that he has shown skills that play at the NBA level. Now, has it looked great? No, but I don't expect it to. Traore is the one that is really far away. And it looks like there's a lot that needs to improve there in terms of the jump shooting, the craft. Like, I think when you look at Saraf, he has the craft, but he doesn't have the jump shooting. Like, he has shown ability to use moves to get downhill, to probe once he gets there, to finish at the rim or try to get it up in the mid-range. And like, the field goal percentage hasn't been there, but he's gotten to spots where he can get those shots off comfortably at times. Traore, but Saraf doesn't have the three-point shooting. Traore hasn't really shown the craft or anything along those lines, hasn't shown the three-point shooting, has looked overmatched physically. So you're going to need Traore to gain that craft. You also need him to improve as a three-point shooter, and you need him to get to a point where his body is ready physically. So that's a lot of things that need to improve. Does it mean he can't do it? No, but it's more boxes that he has to check off as opposed to guys like Joman or Saraf. But I think there have been glaring concerns, but I also think that there have been some glaring positives throughout this time. And this, the way that Nets fans are perceiving this, I think this goes into the next question or take that I got. The next take, I feel like we as Nets fans don't know how to watch rookies as they get thrown in the fire like this. Obviously, it would be ideal if our guys were studs out of the gate, but 5 games is not even close to enough time to have a strong read as to how their careers would play out. Yes, 5 games is not enough time. And look, I'm not expecting to see the most rational takes in my comments on Locked On Nets on YouTube or on Twitter, but I see people like fire Sean Marks, like these guys are terrible, like what was he thinking? And look, like, are there concerns? Yes, there are concerns, but we're 5 games in. These guys are 19 years old. Like, I see people giving me comments and stuff and reaching out to me about Cedric Coward, who has looked great with the Memphis Grizzlies. Like, the Nets should have taken Coward. Like, I'm not going to say they shouldn't have taken Coward. He looks really good, but Coward is 22 years old. Like, he's 3 years developmentally, or at least has played 3 more years than some of these guys. What is Yegor Dioman or Ben Saraf or Nolan Traore going to look like 3 years from now? We have no idea. Like, I think that Nets fans aren't used to having these many rookies. Like, I don't think they're used to having a lottery pick. Obviously, they haven't had one in 15 years. And I think that they may have forgotten what it looks like when these guys come into the league. It's not pretty, especially when they're point guards. I mean, all 3 of the guys we're talking about are point guards. There's going to be struggles. It's going to look ugly at times. Like, that's how it's going to go. We're 5 games in. Am I going to downplay it and say that you don't have valid concerns about Yegor not attempting a 2-point field goal throughout 5 games, or, Ben and Nolan not looking like even decent 3-point shooters? Like, very valid concerns, but give it a little bit more time, give it a little bit more of an extended sample size. It's going to be a year and a half, 2 years before you can make any kind of, sound judgment on what you think these guys are going to be long-term. So that's what I would say. And I caution everybody to calm down a little bit, even if there are some valid concerns right now. Next question. Hornets have 3 rookies in their rotation, occasionally play a 4th. Last season, Wizards had 3 rookies play over 27 minutes per game. Both cases, they played over respected veterans right from the start. Why did we just have a game where the rookies played a total of 28 minutes? So, referring to Yegor Dioman and Ben Saraf, who got benched in the 4th quarter of Wednesday's loss against the Hawks, obviously, did not play a lot, only played 28 minutes in that game. They have played a good amount in the games prior. But I would say in that game looked like, the Nets had a legitimate chance to win that game and come back. And I think that there's some frustration from Jordi Fernandez about how the past games have gone. But I think when you see a chance to win like that and, they're 0-4, you look at the schedule coming up, like there's might be some winnable games, but there's a lot of games that are difficult. And the Nets could be staring down the barrel of a really, really bad start. So I know that's the idea for the tank, and everybody wants them to lose all of these games. But as a coach, when you're thinking about morale and some of those things, if you have a chance to get a win like that, sometimes you're going to go for it. And I think I spoke about this on yesterday's pod. Jordi doesn't want to lose the locker room. Like you heard Michael Porter Jr. after the game. I tweeted this quote and a video of it out, and it's going viral, and people are bashing him. But he said, the rookie point guards, he was asked about the Nets' inability to compete and what could change over the course of the season. And he said, the rookie point guards, he pointed to that as the biggest reason why the Nets are struggling. And I don't even necessarily agree with that, because their defense has been far worse than their offense. And I think that has been collectively, that's not just a rookie point guard issue. But, having rookie point guards isn't an inhibitor to competing. The Nets obviously had that in mind when they filled out this roster. Michael Porter Jr. also said that they might need to do things to change their rotations. And so that's the top player on the team. And he's already, clearly has some frustrations about how things are going. So if Jordi Fernandez at the end of that game, a game where Ben Saraf and Yegor Dioman were struggling pretty mightily in the beginning, and it was pretty clear that there were better options to try to win the game in the fourth quarter, if he still rolled with the rookies and the Nets, don't make any kind of comeback and they just get blown out, I do not think that would sit well with a lot of the rest of the locker room. And that has to factor into the equation. So I think that that's part of it. But I do think as the season progresses, you're going to want to see these rookies play over the veterans. And next question, do you feel there's a disconnect at all with the rookies' playing time / development and Jordi's coaching philosophy? I understand benching rookies as a lesson, but we're not even 10 games in. Let the rookies play. Look, I understand that. I think that the rookies should be playing a lot, all of them, but I understand why some of these guys are going to be in Long Island to start the year. Nolan Traore, Danny Wolf, Drake Powell. I think those guys need time in Long Island developmentally in order to, improve some of their skill sets, and also in Wolf's case for the Nets to kind of get a gauge on what he is positionally. But as the year progresses, it's tough to say for Powell or Wolf because we haven't really seen those guys play against NBA competition, save for a few preseason games. Once we see them, I think we'll get a better understanding of, how ready are they relative to some of the veterans that are playing over them. And obviously, they're going to be less ready. But Wolf's 21 years old. Noah Clowney has looked brutal through, 4 or 5 or through 5 games. How much worse is Danny Wolf going to be than Noah Clowney? I'd speculate to say that he'd probably be better right now. And then you look at a guy, well, that depends on whether the Nets want to play Wolf at power forward or center. You look at Drake Powell, he's extremely athletic. He's the most athletic guy on the team. He's probably one of the better defenders on the team from day one. And, getting him in the lineup, based on what we've seen defensively, it has been a shit show defensively. I try not to curse on here, but I think it was warranted there. It's been completely a joke defensively. So if it continues to look that way, I could see Jordi just throwing Powell in the lineup as he did in the third quarter of that Charlotte Hornets game. He got so frustrated with Cam Thomas and Michael Porter Jr., he just threw Powell out there. So we'll see as the year progresses, but I think that as things move forward, more and more of these rookies are going to get into the lineup. But I think in guys like Wolf and Powell's case, if it keeps going like this, there might be a case to just throw them out there. And, the G League could be great, but just throw him out there and kind of trial by fire, and we'll see how it works. But with Traore, I think he's the guy that definitely needs a lot of time in the G League. Coming up, we got more questions about the Nets rookies. Also, Jordi Fernandez and Sean Marks. What could their futures look like with the organization? So we get into all that when I continue Locked On Nets after a quick break. Your ambition just met its match with Robinhood. You play for the win, not just on game day, every day. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood's Legend Advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood Strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself. Expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. The NBA season is heating up, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for the highlights, your fantasy team, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes every game night even better. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the Bag Drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. We're talking about player-inspired drip, exclusive gear, and stuff you'll actually want. DoorDash has you covered for late-night highlights, last-minute watch parties, and double OT fuel up. So next time someone goes off for 50, use promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass, plus your shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only. 50% off up to $10 a day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. Coming back from the break on today's Locked On Nets episode, this Fan Take Friday. Rolling on through your takes and questions. Next one. Are these veterans hampering the rookies? Wouldn't Yegor and Saraf's style of play complement each other better as a backcourt duo than taking turns playing off Cam Thomas? I mean, I wouldn't say the veterans are hampering the rookies. Like if your stance is that the veterans are playing so these rookies aren't getting playing time, like that's hampering them. If you're talking about, like Cam Thomas, like is Cam Thomas the best fit? Like I think there are a lot of times in these games where it's just evolving into Cam Thomas getting the ball and taking a bunch of dribbles and the ball sticking and not really moving. But at the same time, like you can't really pin all of that on Cam Thomas because Ben Saraf and Yegor have glaring limitations as a scorer. And you look at it, Cam Thomas is their safety blanket a lot of the time. They're looking to him. They're looking to just get him the ball, to get him to do something. So that, I think, is a coaching issue. It's also just something that is a talent issue. Like Ben and Yegor are very limited right now. So they need those safety blankets like Cam Thomas or Michael Porter Jr. Otherwise, you could make an argument maybe that it's just like play them together, let them figure it out. Like that could be the case, but it already looks like pretty ugly right now. I'm not sure how much uglier you want it to get. But as the year goes on, I would expect Ben and Yegor to get time playing alongside of one another, especially given Yegor's ball handling limitations and the potential for him to play the wing long term. I think the Nets will want to get looks at him in both spots throughout the season. Next question. Cy implying the tank before the season starts. Nets not signing a veteran point guard. Why would any current player put it all out there consistently? Half the team probably wondering which team they might be on before the end of the season. Hey, yes, like that's a very reasonable take. That's a very reasonable, that's the ugliness of a tanking situation. A lot of these guys, especially if their contract situation is secured, it's tough when you're on a tanking team. And that's why I said, with Jordi playing or benching the rookies at the end of that Atlanta loss, like you need to try to keep like some semblance of sanity in the locker room and some semblance of buy-in. We're only 5 games in to the season. Like what's going to happen when you're at game 35 and 40? The answer is probably some of these guys aren't going to be on the roster anymore, but like the tanking, it sucks. It's not a way that any team wants to go about their business or should have to go about their business, but it's an unfortunate reality of the business. And I would say, if you're asking why would anybody put it all out there like a veteran, I think there's a few answers. You'd like to say in a perfect world, pride, because you're an NBA player and you're getting paid millions of dollars, and that's what you should be doing. Also, if you're trying to get a new contract or things along those lines or rehabilitate your value. But, I would say that it's tough when you're in a tanking situation. Like if the goal isn't winning, which it pretty clearly is not from an organizational standpoint this year, it's tough to expect the players to always give 100% effort. And that's why Jordi Fernandez, he's kind of caught in the limbo. I've always said organizations tank, players don't, and the coaches kind of get caught in the middle. So I think we're seeing that with Jordi Fernandez, and it'll be interesting to see how he proceeds. Next question, is Jordi Fernandez's good coaching being wasted with this tanking mission? Could he be considered and tempted by another franchise if the role came available? Would he be in the mix? Like, I can't say if another head coaching job, became available, would he be in the mix? I would say that the Nets hired Jordi Fernandez with a vision. He knew that tanking was very much on the table when he took the job, and it ended up playing out that way. And the Nets also don't have their 2027 first-round picks. So this season's going to be ugly, but after this, they're going to start pressing their foot on the gas pedal. And I think Jordi is going to, like that a lot more, as will everybody else involved in the organization. I think this season is going to be rough, and we're already seeing it start to wear on Jordi. Like after the last 2 losses, after the Rockets loss and the Hawks loss, he was not happy. In the press conference after the Hawks game, he was pretty despondent and pretty annoyed. And, I think that it's going to be a long season, but I think Jordi knew what he signed up for. So we'll see how it goes down the line. Next question, do you think that if the Nets lose a good number of games in a row, this streak could put Jordi's position as head coach in danger? I'm starting to get worried because I can't see this team winning against anybody. No. Like, Jordi Fernandez's job is not in danger. This is a tanking season. The Nets front office pretty much cut Jordi's legs out from under him in terms of the roster and his ability to compete because he did such a good job last season. So no, his job is not in jeopardy. Next question. If the Nets rookies show little promise during the course of this season and the team has a historically bad season, what do you think the chances are of Sean Marks losing his job? My concern is that none of the rookies work out. They have a horrible season and they get the 5th pick. If the rookies just look like completely atrocious for the whole season, that I don't think Sean's going to get fired, but I think that would put him closer to losing his job. I think a lot of it is going to depend on lottery luck because the Nets are presumably going to be in the top 3 of the lottery odds this year. So if they get one of those top 3 guys in Peterson, DeBansta, or Boozer, like, that's a shiny new toy that Marks, can flash to Joe Tsai and say, like, we got this guy. I have a plan of how to move forward with him. I'd also say, though, as I just noted, the Nets don't have their 2027 first-round pick. So they're going to be trying to compete next season or trying to take a big step back towards competing. And, Sean, I don't think has the longest leash right now based on him being 10 years in and only have one playoff series win. This next season, I think, is going to say a lot, in 2027. Like, if they're not good that season, will Sean get fired? But I don't know. But I think they're going to need to show improvement. Like, if they're still one of the worst teams of the league in 2027, I think that could lead to Sean getting fired. And I think given that, you're going to see him make some moves that are going to give this team a much better chance. Could that be a star trade? Could that be some moves around the margin to surround these rookies right now and whoever they get in next year's draft? We'll see. But he's going to have a big-time incentive to prove his worth during that 2027 season. And on that note, how does this team improve enough from where it's at now so that we are competitive and don't give a top 5 pick to Houston next year? I'm tired of building championship teams for other franchises. What are we expecting from this year's first-round picks? It's too early to say, but what I would say is that the Nets are going to make moves. There's a few different avenues that you can do that. There are star trades. If Giannis or somebody else gets available and the Nets throw their hat in that ring, do I think that's all that realistic in the Giannis case? Probably not, but there's definitely a chance. And then there's other guys who could become available. There's free agents like, Austin Reeves or whatever other guy could hit the market. The Nets are going to have space to go after those kinds of guys and say, like, we're not taking anymore. We want to start going. And they can, flash their rookies right now if any of those guys show promise, plus whoever they get in the draft this coming year. And they could have something to work with there. So I would say that I can't forecast what the moves are going to be, but I'll say that there are going to be aggressive moves to try to get better in 2027. Next question. Cam Thomas has improved in each season he's been in the league with increased points per game and assists. Most beat writers think he's not long for this franchise, but what about the talent he has played with the past 2.5 years? Imagine CT with a top 3 pick in 2026. Yeah, like I did the episode with Lucas Kaplan on Tuesday talking about the narrative surrounding Cam Thomas. And I think I've been pretty clear that my stance is that Cam Thomas can have a very valuable role in the NBA. Like, people say that he's not a winning player, and I think that gets construed as like he's just a loser and he doesn't have any value, and I don't think that's the case. I think Cam has value in a specific role. I just don't think that's the role that Cam wants. I also think Cam has value at a specific price point. I don't think that's the price point that Cam wants. From like everything that I've heard and it has been reported is that Cam was seeking a contract like in the range of Jalen Green and some of these other guys, which is like $30 million annually, which would obviously give him a starting spot. And if I'm the Nets, like, I'm just not really interested in paying Cam that kind of money. And I'm not really interested in doing that and locking him into having to be one of my starters. If you could get Cam at a discounted rate, like the 2 years, 30 that they offered him, or something like $20 million, $20 million might even be a little rich for my blood, but that's much more realistic than some of the other things. So I think Cam is not a player who has no value. He definitely has value. He's one of the best scoring talents in the NBA. And at the end of the day, the game is about putting the ball in the basket. But because he doesn't really do anything else outside of that at even like a decent level, I'm not, I wouldn't be comfortable paying him as a starter or even approaching starter level money, like in this today's modern NBA. Like that's just not something I'd be interested in. So that's how I see it. And, if you guys disagree, you disagree. Last question. I'd like to discuss our pickup on defense when we do not have the athleticism in the backcourt or the shot blocking bigs in the front court to warrant this play style. And this guy put a graph on that I've seen. I think it's from the All City Sports Network, talking about the pickup points of each of the NBA teams defensively. And the Nets are the second highest pickup point in the league right now. And, the Nets are playing a much more aggressive defensive scheme. They're blitzing on a lot of pick and rolls, or they're playing at the level, or they're just trapping at half court. I think those blitzes on the pick and roll or just the traps at half court are influencing that pickup point stat. But this is something that Jordi Fernandez believes in, and I've talked about it extensively already. The Nets do not have the personnel to play this kind of scheme in terms of the point of attack defenders, in terms of Cam Thomas and MPJ being in the starting lineup, in terms of them just having a clear lack of athleticism. But it seems like it's the vision that Jordi wants to implement. So I think he's willing to, deal with the growing pains and losses during a tanking season if it means some of the rookies and some of these other guys getting more used to making the rotations, doing some of the things along those lines. Now, if it continues to be this ugly and the Nets just have a historically bad defense, how long will Jordi be comfortable with that? That's a question to monitor. But, I think for now, he's going to stick with this defensive coverage because it's a philosophy that he believes in his bones. So I wouldn't expect him to just abandon it because the Nets are losing some games during a tanking season. We got a few more Nets questions about the development of the rookies, about Nick Claxton, Cam Thomas, and some other things. So I'll get into all that when I close out Locked On Nets after a quick break. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Coming back from the break on today's Locked On Nets episode, closing out this Fan Take Friday, rolling on through your takes and questions. Next one, which style of point guard development do you like more? Jason Kidd with how he goes about Giannis and Cooper Flag, don't shoot jumpers as much / attack the rim / playmake, or Jordi with how he goes about Ben, Yegor, Nolan, shoot / pass within the offense. I think I just disagree with how you're categorizing those styles of point guard development. Like Giannis doesn't shoot threes anymore, but he's not a point. He handles the ball, but he's not a point guard. Like you can't compare Ben and Yegor and Nolan to Giannis or Cooper Flag. They're just completely different players. And I don't think Jordi's philosophy is shoot / pass within the offense, like shoot threes or just pass. Like he wants these guys to get to the rim. He wants them to attack the paint. He wants them to score, from all three levels, probably less so from the mid-range. But Jordi's philosophy and a lot of NBA teams' philosophy now is, rim attempts and three-point attempts. And if you're good enough to warrant taking those mid-range attempts, you can do that if it's a high-level shot. But I think that's the way a lot of teams go about it. And I think that, Ben and Yegor and Nolan just have limitations right now where it's not Jordi saying, like, do this or don't do that. Like, I asked Jordi about Yegor, not attempting a 2-point field goal attempt through 5 games. I asked him after the Atlanta Hawks, and he was pretty candid. He said, like, Yegor's got to figure it out. He's got to be more aggressive. So that's how I think that Jordi is looking at it. And I think that these guys will gain more comfort as the season goes along, and they'll start showing some more things. Next question. Do you think Claxton gets traded this season, and does he even have much trade value at this point? I don't know. I think, if you're talking about the veterans on this team who are trade candidates, I think, a guy like Haywood Highsmith, who hasn't even played now, I think he's the top one because I think he'll just be easily flippable if he comes back and is healthy and can play. I think Claxton is near that list too, because I think of the veterans that they have, I think he probably has the most value. He's on a descending contract that it's not a great contract, but it's not a bad contract either. And if teams have a need for a center, I could see him getting moved. So how much trade value does he have at this point? I don't see the Nets getting like a premium asset for him, but I think they could get something, whether it's like a heavily protected first round pick, whether it's some seconds and like another salary filler player. Like it's tough for me to speculate, but I think he has some value. And I think that he will be a trade candidate as the year progresses because you have Day'Ron, who fits the timeline better, is cheaper, is playing well right now. And you have Danny Wolf waiting in the wings. So is he definitely going to get traded? No, but I do think that he'll be a candidate for sure. Next question. What does Sean Marks and the scouting team have against drafting players with athleticism and players with size? Sean has a habit of drafting non-athletic players, and that needs to be addressed. Yeah, I mean, he does. Like, it's a theme amongst this point. In terms of players who are very athletic and sizable and forceful, there haven't been too many of them. Like, if you look at Sean's draft picks, like, you could say, Nick Claxton has some, like, springiness and athleticism to him, but he doesn't have the girth. You look at Dayron, like, I think he's a pretty physical guy, but he's not that explosively athletic. You look at, the other guys that they picked, obviously, like Yegor's a finesse guy, Ben's a finesse guy. A lot of these guys, like high feel finesse guys, Musa and some of the other guys that he's taken. There's definitely a theme across that, and I think that there needs to be a turn towards taking some more athletic, more forceful guys. But I think you also need to keep in mind that Sean has been drafting most of the time with picks in the 20s or into the second round. So everybody would love to have these guys that are extremely athletic and extremely forceful and also have skill. You don't find those guys in the 20s and the 30s a lot of the time. You might find them with the 8th pick, and he took Yegor Gioman. So I think that is, illustrating kind of, the way that he leans a lot of the time. And I think that you also can find players in the 20s and 30s who might have that athleticism and that force in some things, but don't have as much of the skill. I think Sean leans towards the skill more. And I think that that's something that needs to be, needs to be addressed and needs to change, because the Nets just have not been an athletic team. They have not been a forceful team since Sean has took over. Obviously, a lot of those years when they had players like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, so they were building the team around those guys, but that has been a weakness, and that does seem like it needs to be something that Sean looks for more in the draft process. Next question. Who are realistic trade partners for Cam Thomas, and what could a potential package look like? It's too early to say right now. Like, I speculated with Lucas Kaplan about the Pistons on my earlier Cam Thomas episode. I think they'd be a good fit. Outside of that, like, if you're looking at teams that just need a scoring punch off the bench, teams who lack, perimeter scoring, and Cam will be very gettable. Are the Nets going to get anything significant for Cam? I highly doubt it. Like, could they get second round picks for him or a second round pick? I think like that's what it would look like. So we'll see, but I think it's too early to say. Next question. What's your take on Noah Clowney's performance so far this season? Noah hasn't played well. Like, I think that's just a fact. There's no dancing around that. He's looked really poor through these first 5 games. He's shooting 7 of 28 from the field, 4 of 20 from 3. So the efficiency has been terrible. Him trying to create off the dribble and do some of those things, it's looked really clunky and awkward once again. And defensively, he hasn't really made an impact. And nobody has really made an impact defensively. I don't think you've really seen too many spurts where Noah looks like he's making much of an impact on that end of the floor. And then offensively, like, I think the fourth quarter against the Hawks was a little bit more encouraging. We saw him alter some shots at the rim. We saw him have a forceful drive to the basket where he actually looked like he was trying to dunk on somebody. So that's positive. But overall, the weaknesses with Noah continue to be pretty glaring in terms of the ball handling and some of those things. And the three-point shooting, which is supposed to be the top skill, hasn't really been there. So not a good start for Noah. Last question. Should Jordi tinker with playing Clowney, Claxton, and MPJ in the front court together to address the rebounding concerns? Yeah, like, I think you could definitely do that. Like, I think that, that would help the rebounding concerns. It would give the Nets more size, but I also say that the Nets have a glaring ball handling deficit. And if you play guys, Clowney, Claxton, MPJ, that's 3 guys that really can't handle the ball. And then you're throwing in a rookie point guard. Like, if you're throwing in Yegor Gioman or one of these other rookie point guards who aren't the most polished, ball handlers or offensive initiators at this point, it's going to look pretty rough offensively, but it already looks really rough defensively right now. So it's kind of a balancing act. Like, the Nets defense has been historically bad. I think their offense has actually been better than expected. It's like 14th in the NBA in offensive rating right now. So does it shift more towards trying to improve the defense at the expense of the offense? We'll see, but ultimately it's not going to look good no matter what. But, how Jordi proceeds will be interesting to monitor. But that's all I have today for this Locked On Nets episode, this Fan Take Friday. Thank you to all of you who submit questions and continue to participate. Really enjoy the mailbag episodes, and you guys make it possible. But if you guys do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoy the content, take a second, smash that like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you can do to engage is much appreciated. We got some Nets practice. Then we got them back at Barclays Center on Sunday against the Philadelphia 76ers. So I'll have coverage of all that and more when I'm back on Monday talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.